Okay, boys and girls, a quick reminder, what we've been looking at this week has been two items, imaginary numbers and complex numbers. A reminder that we looked at the cycles of imaginary numbers. You can look at the previous video just to learn about how the pattern repeats itself and what strategy to follow. With complex numbers, what we have is actually a real part, as we can see, a real number, and an imaginary part with I. Notice we have the square root of 49, and quite simply when you simplify the square root of 49, you're dealing with the square root of -1, always have to have the square root of -1, and the square root of 49. Well, you guys already know that the square root of 49 is 7, and I on its own, square root of -1, is just I. So notice how we managed to get 7i from that. And right there, we have a complex number. A complex number is filled with a real number and an imaginary part. So, going through the operations, we're going to look at addition, subtraction, and multiplication. You can check out the video that follows for division, and that will be a little bit trickier. I've written a little rule right here that we're going to have to remember for addition and subtraction in that sense as well, and that is that numbers go with numbers, and imaginary parts, meaning 2i, goes with imaginary parts, like 5i. So, I'm going to do this in red. We have 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 gives us 7. And then we have -2 plus 5. Well, -2 plus 5 gives us 3. So, don't forget about your I. You got to carry that over. So we have our final answer of 7 plus 3i. There we have it. Yeah? Numbers with numbers, imaginary parts with imaginary parts. Take a look at the next example. 17 plus -11. Well, 17 plus -11 is the same thing as subtracting 11, right? So we have 17 plus -11, which gives us 6. And then we have 3i, otherwise known as 3, the imaginary part, minus 9, which equals -6. Don't forget about your I. You got to carry it over. I know. 6 minus 6i, everyone, is our final answer, yeah? I hope that makes sense, okay? So, key thing to remember here, is that the imaginary parts go with imaginary parts and that numbers go with numbers. Do not forget that, okay? Do not forget that one. It's a big one. So that's addition. That's the easier of them. Now we're going to take a look at subtraction. I hope you guys remember with Herman Mejia that whenever you are subtracting a polynomial, you are essentially changing the insides to the opposites. You know, we're subtracting the opposites, essentially. So what we're looking at here, we have -2 minus -6. But is that a -6? So it's -2 minus 6. You guys hopefully remember that a negative and a negative is always a positive. So we can do -2 plus 6. Combine those two numbers and it gives us 4. We can also do the imaginary part, -7 and 5i. So -7 minus +5, 5, which is going to give us -12. And don't forget about your I. There we go. Yeah? Don't forget to bring a towel. There we go. Now we have 4 minus -12i. Okay? And there is our answer. Let's do one more, because this is a little bit trickier. 6 minus 13. 6 minus 13. Yeah? 6 minus 13, negative 7. And 8i minus 9i, well, that's 8 minus 9, which is, as you guys know, positive. So that's 8 plus 9, which gives us 17. And let's not forget about our special little friend, Mr. I. Having a few technical problems here, it looks like. I, yeah? So, final answer is negative 7 plus 17i. And final answer, we have our real part right here, our real part in both of these. And then we have the imaginary part, which is in green. Negative 12 and 17, okay? Key thing to remember, and I've put it there as a reason, just to remember, always change the positive and negative of the second complex number and combine. That's essentially what you're doing right there, is you're just changing the second term from positive to negative and negative to positive and combining the like terms, okay? All right. Let's take a look at multiplication. Now, multiplication, esto es fundamental. You're going to need to remember that I squared equals negative I. I squared equals negative I. And we're going to follow the distributive property with this by multiplying 6i with 10 and 6i with negative 7. So the number times the number, 6 times 10, is going to give us 60i. And here's the tricky part. This is where we're going to have to pay attention to our little rule right here, where we have 6i times negative 7i. Well, 6i times negative 7i, yeah, multiplied, guys, multiplied. We're going to do the number with the number, right? 6 times negative 7, which gives us negative 42. But what do we do about the I? Well, I times I is negative I, negative 1. So, teacher, you're saying negative 42 times negative 1? Yes. Whatever your result is, you're going to have to result in doing the opposite because it's a negative number, 42. So notice we now have our two answers, 60i because of 6i times 10. That's the easy part. But because of the I squared, I times I, we have 42. So write this out in the same way that we do with complex numbers. The real part first and the imaginary part second. The real part first and the imaginary part second, okay? 42 plus 6i. All right, there we have it. So please remember, that's a key rule. Yeah, I times I is negative I. So whatever you get, you change it from negative to positive and positive to negative. Just remember that. Now, let's take a look at the next one. This is a little bit different because notice here you're going to have to use our old friend, Mr. Foil. This is more than anything what you're going to see on a regular basis. So FOIL tells me that I got to go 4 times 7 and 4 times negative 7. Well, 4 times 7 is going to give me 28, and 4 times negative 7i is going to give us negative 28. Don't forget about him. He's still there. I. But we also got to do 3i times 7. Negative 3i times 7 and negative 3 times negative 7. So negative 3 times 7 will give us negative, because it's a negative times a positive, 21i. And negative 3i, let's just write this out a little bit simpler, negative 3i times negative 7i. Well, negative 3 times negative 7 is 21. But I times I, well, here's the tricky part, is negative 1. So, negative 21. Yeah? Negative 21. And there we have our thing. However, we're not done here, are we? No. Because we have to combine like terms, things that appear to be the same. Combine like terms. So what we have is 28 minus 21, 7. And negative 21 minus 28. These two parts need to combine because they are of the same family. Negative 28 minus 21 will give us negative 49i. Okay? I get that this is probably the trickier one to go for, but you're going to have to always do FOIL. Don't worry about the I, as long as you're remembering that a negative I squared is negative 1. As long as you remember that, you guys should be fine. Okay, this is the topic I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on. I think the addition and subtraction you guys will pick up pretty quickly, but this is the one that's pretty difficult. Not too difficult, just mistakes can happen with this one more often. Okay, I hope the video is useful, and if you need anything, always available. Have a good day, everyone.